Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the February 22nd regular meeting of the Environmental Quality Control Board. My name is Richard Coles. I'm the chair of the ECQB. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. With that, I'd like to ask one of my colleagues to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Community Development Director please call the roll?
Good evening. Yes, thank you. Chair Coles?
Here.
Present. Board Member Showalter? And Board Member Allen?
Here.
3 present and with one absence. Thank you.
That's right, we're one short, I forgot that. The next item will be the approval of the agenda. I will call for a motion to second.
I'll second.
So approved. Director Schmedel, will you please take a roll call vote?
Board Member Allen?
Here, agreed.
Yeah. Board Member Showalter? And Chair Coles?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passed.
Next, we have a scheduled item, the environmental impact report and scoping meeting for the Old Ranch Country Club specific plan project. The purpose of this item is for the staff and all of us to gather further information about this project. And so the intent of the meeting this evening isn't whether this project is going to go forward. So when we get to the comments period, I'd like to really admonish everyone here to provide inputs so at the end of the day we can end up with a competent draft environmental document that really reflects what the condition is and what the proposed document will intend to do. If we can accomplish that this evening, it would be outstanding. And I just want to take a minute to thank all of you for taking time out of all of your busy schedules to be part of our meeting this evening. Public comments tonight should, as I mentioned, should be focused on the preparation of the documents. Written comments will be accepted by staff until 5 p.m. March 7th, 2023. Comments should be addressed to Sean Temple. He reports to our Director of Planning. And if you could do that, it would be, for those of you who don't have the document, it's stemple@sealbeachcalifornia.gov, or you can mail it here to the City Hall. Once the report's done, there'll be a 45-day review period where the document can be reviewed and commented upon. There'll be several opportunities for all of interested parties to comment on the document as we go forward. Is the staff ready to give us a report?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair Coles. I want to thank the board tonight, and I want to especially thank the public for coming out. This is a really nice crowd. And as Chair Coles mentioned, I'm available for comment, not just tonight, but until March 7th. I've left my card up there, which has my phone number and email, so you can reach out to me directly anytime. And actually throughout the process of this project, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, I'm very much available to speak to anyone from the community. Okay, Megan, next slide. As a briefing to our meeting tonight, I will first provide an overview of the project. We will then have a discussion on the purpose of this specific meeting tonight, as well as the purpose of the California Environmental Quality Act in general. We'll provide an outline of the environmental impact report process and environmental topics that would be addressed in that report and process. Also, as Chair Coles mentioned, this won't be the only opportunity for public involvement, so we will provide information on future opportunities. Finally, we will open up this meeting to public comment. This will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide input on the environmental analysis to be performed. Next slide, please. The applicant for this project is the Old Ranch Development LLC, and the City of Seal Beach will be the lead agency in the California Environmental Quality Act process. The proposed project is located at 3901 Lamson Avenue on the property occupied by the Old Ranch Country Club. The project will result in the creation of increased housing, employment, and recreation opportunities in the area. Next slide, please. This map depicts the proposed improvements, and I'll go ahead and describe them starting from the left, which is where Seal Beach Boulevard meets Lamson. In that very left part, it will be a proposed multifamily housing. To going east along Lamson, the maintenance yard will be relocated to the spot shown in the brown. Further east will be a proposed new senior living facility along with attached medical office. That will be just directly west of where the driving range is. The driving range will be reconfigured to be a one-way range. To the east of that will be a proposed three-story parking structure. Just east of that is the existing club facility where there will be proposed additions of that swimming pool area as well as proposed overnight stay area as part of the club. Next slide, please. For some more detailed information, the multifamily structure is proposed at 4 levels, 4 stories, and 116 units. The senior housing is proposed at 3 levels and 51 units. The overnight accommodations will provide 140 rooms and would include a bar, a lounge, and a specialty restaurant. The 3-level parking structure would have 591 stalls, and total parking on site would be proposed at 1,042 spaces. Next slide, please. Additionally, the golf course is proposed to be recontoured as part of the floodplain easement and drainage reconfiguration. Entranceways will be modified, including providing entrance off Lamson at Old Ranch Plaza, a new emergency access, and modifications to the current driveway leading into the country club. There will also be improvements to drive aisles, landscapings, and surface parking. Next slide, please. The planning entitlements that will be required for this project will be a newly created specific plan, the EIR related to that, the development agreement, eucalyptus tree permit, zoning amendment for adjustment of height standards, design review, and vesting tentative track map are a tentative track map. I will now turn the remainder of this presentation over to Aliyah Hakuki from SOMAS, which is the firm providing consultation services in helping to prepare the environmental impact report.
Thanks, John. I'm sorry about my voice. It's just kind of going away. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aliyah Hakuki. I'm a senior environmental project manager with SOMAS. As the environmental consultants to the city, we are tasked with preparation of the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, for the project. Tonight, I will discuss the purpose of this meeting, the purpose of the CEQA process, environmental topics, and opportunities for public involvement. Regarding tonight's meeting, I would like to indicate that the purpose is to be here and solicit comments. Now, these comments can be in writing or verbal. We do have comment sheets available that are addressed to Sean on the back. So you can either submit your comments here or mail them to Sean. The purpose of the scoping meeting, as I indicated, is to solicit comments that will help determine the scope and level of information in the CEQA document. However, what it is not is a discussion of the potential impacts of the project, because it is early in the process and some of our studies are still being prepared. Next, please. What is CEQA? CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, is California's broadest environmental law. It applies to all discretionary projects and actions in California. The purpose is to disclose to decision makers and the public the potential impacts of a discretionary action by preparing an environmental document. In this case, the environmental document is an environmental impact report, or EIR. Now, if potentially significant impacts are identified through the process, CEQA requires mitigation measures to avoid or to reduce the potential impacts to less than significant level. The purpose is also to identify a reasonable range of alternatives to the project. Next, please. So this flow chart identifies the environmental, or in this case, the EIR process for the project. After we kicked off the project with the information provided by the city and the applicant, we prepared an initial study as well as a notice of determination, or NOP. The purpose of the NOP is, number one, to solicit comments on the scope and content of the document. Also, to notify the public and the agencies about the project and that an EIR will be prepared. The final purpose is to let the public know about the scoping meeting. An initial study is a preliminary environmental assessment of the project. Now, one of the benefits of an initial study is that through that process, we are able to focus out the environmental topics that are not very relevant, and the project would not result in impacts related to those topics. And then we are also actually able to focus out some of the questions under each of the thresholds. So the document, as you know, the ISN NOP went out for public review on February 6th, and the review period will finish or will end on March 7th. After the review period is done and we receive comment letters, we will start preparing an administrative draft EIR. So multiple rounds of review of the administrative done will take place. The city will review and approve those drafts before the final draft is out for a 45-day public review period. We anticipate that the 45-day review period would occur in summer of this year. Once the review period, the 45-day review, is over, and by the way, during that process, we will receive comment letters from the agencies and the public. And per CEQA, we are required to provide written comments to each comment, written responses to each comment provided. And after the city reviews the responses and approve them, we will mail the responses to commenters and share the responses with the decision makers 10 days prior to public hearing. We anticipate that the public hearing will occur around fall of this year. Now, the final step in this process, after the project is approved and the environmental document is certified, we will prepare a notice of determination and we will file it with the county clerk. Next, please. As you may have already seen in the initial study checklist or Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines includes 20 environmental topics. As you see on the slide, for the updates, the 2019 updates to CEQA guidelines, 2 new topics of energy and wildfire were added to the list. Now, while the environmental checklist includes all these 20 topics, the EIR is not required to analyze each one in detail in the EIR. We can focus out the topics as well as threshold questions within each topic, as long as we're able to provide the rationale and justification as to why the project would not result in significant impacts related to those topics. The topics that will be included in the EIR will be analyzed at both project-specific as well as cumulative impacts. Cumulative levels. A cumulative impact is one that results from the combined effects of the past, present, and future foreseeable projects. Next, please. Now, as I mentioned earlier and as was shown on the flowchart, CEQA provides opportunities for public involvement and comments throughout the process. Now, we already have had that opportunity with the review of the NOP, and tonight is another occasion to provide comments, and future opportunities will include comments during the 45-day CEQA mandated 45 days of the draft EIR, and of course also comments to be provided at the public hearing, Planning Commission, and City Council. So please provide your verbal and written comments. If you would like to provide verbal comments, please provide your names to my colleague Megan, and she will call your names in the order that she receives them. Next, please. So again, just to reiterate, the purpose of the scoping meeting is to solicit comments. There's still opportunity to provide your comments, and you can either email or mail your comments to Sean at the city. And Sean's contact information is on the last slide. And also, if you would like to take a look at the NOP and the initial study, they are still available at public libraries, at the city, and on the city's website. That ends my presentation. I thank you for your time and attention.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. That was an outstanding report. Thank you so much. At this time, we'd like to welcome members of the public to provide input on the environmental impact analysis to be performed as part of this project. This is not a public hearing, so we will not be limiting the time of the speakers this evening. But once again, I'd like to request that everyone please keep it. This is not to determine whether this project goes forward or not. It's really all about making the assessment a better document. So if you have something to contribute, please join us in working toward that. And there will be many other opportunities to share your concerns whether or not the project goes forward or not. With that, I would like to open it up to public comment.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Rabin, and I am, my wife Abby and I have been residents of College Park East for over 40 years. We are, my wife and I led the committee that, with the assistance of Patty Campbell back there, that created Arbor Dog Park in 2003. My wife and I are members, golf members of Old Ranch, and I have a law office over here in the ranch, the ranch complex. So we have substantial contacts with the community. I want to address the limited question this is a scoping issue. As many of you are or should be aware, that this is not the only project that we have that we're looking at in this community. At the same time that Dr. Cho, who is the owner of Old Ranch, is proposing the vast improvements to that project, we have the question of the development of what's known as the Swirl property, which is a 12.5-acre property that is just east of Old Ranch and is opposite the east end of College Park East. That's a 12.5 or so acre property. The new owners who just acquired it are proposing to build about 250 residences. Part of this project purportedly will address the Los Alamitos requirement for affordable housing under the act that was passed this last autumn. There's already a community group that has been established in College Park East that is strongly opposing that project. The concerns being raised there are questions concerning parking, concerning the impact that such a facility would have on traffic on Lamson Avenue, which, as you know, is 2 lanes each direction. There's also some significant concerns about the effect of public services, and I saw that's one of the environmental considerations, public services, access by police and fire to the property. Well, many of those concerns that we're seeing with the Swirl project apply to the Old Ranch project as well. We are all concerned about what the impact of bringing in what I think are going to be probably at least 2,500 people into the neighborhood every day. People that are going to be living in the Swirl project, people who are going to be living in the senior care facility, people who are going to be living in the new 4-story apartment building on Seal Beach Boulevard, and the people who will be staying at the 150-room hotel that is planned to go up right across the street of College Park East. My point here, we're talking about the scope of the evaluation. I don't believe that either Seal Beach or Los Alamitos should be allowed to consider those projects in a vacuum. We're essentially looking at a development of a very restricted area. And I don't know if it's within your jurisdiction, but I think there has to be, in the process of determining the environmental impact, I think we have to look at the environmental impact of both projects simultaneously. I think that if that's not done, you will not be doing an adequate job for the neighbors, for the neighborhood, for the city. And so again, to the extent that is within your power, I think some effort has to be made to look at the total impact that both projects are going to have. I know that this same process, obviously, is going to be happening with regard to the project that is the Swirl project, and that's pending before the Los Alamitos City Council. So I don't think that any report that is issued by this body is going to be complete unless the impact of the Swirl project is also considered. Okay, thank you very much.
Glenn, that's
Yes.
great comments. Before this board, we've looked at traffic during the 24-hour fitness issue,
Sure.
the proposal that came a year or two ago, and we are aware of the transportation and associated issues, and I'm certain that SOMAS will take a hard look at that.
Let me follow up on that. We know right now that there are times, especially like in the morning, for example, when people are going to school and work, that the traffic on Lamson Avenue can back up from Seal Beach Boulevard past Basswood, which is the current entrance to Old Ranch Country Club. Just imagine what the impact is going to be when all of these these folks are going to be coming in to those different facilities. And I'm concerned, for example, if we have that traffic, what happens if there is a fire? Right? I don't know if you are going to be eliciting impact from the fire department and the police department. I don't know if they're concerned about how they are going to be servicing these new facilities, but that's got to be considered. Okay, and College Park East we've lived there for many years and we enjoy it. I know there has to be progress in certain ways. You can't stop all development, but you have to look at this is about the environment. This will have a significant impact on the environment that we enjoy in College Park East. Okay.
We have a question from one of my members. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I'm directing it to SOMAS. Everything this gentleman has said is, points well taken, but doesn't that consideration of all this fall under the definition of the purview of the
cumulative.
Cumulative, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what I was going to mention, that it is a requirement for a document like an environmental impact report that project-specific as well as cumulative impacts of the project will be analyzed at a level of detail to determine the potential impacts. So the cumulative impacts is the combined effect of the project within the jurisdiction in proximity to the proposed project, in addition to projects in the surrounding jurisdictions.
Question, would you, as a matter of course, be communicating with, with your counterparts with Los Al project?
We actually contact the city for a list of their projects, and we will disclose all those projects in the environmental document.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it very much, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Mario Voce. I live in Seal Beach. And I'm really interested in the science of the whole project. When I sat on the environmental board for a couple of decades, that's a lot of what I've learned was how much the science involved in this is. By that I mean the accuracy of the information and the source of that information as it applies to biology, mathematics, and by mathematics I mean traffic circulation. For example, we have the, basically I call them rivers of congestion, the 405, 605, Lamson, and Seal Beach Boulevard are all located right within the scope of this project. We can't get through there now. I mean, it's a nightmare. So the math of how this is all going to work out has to be very clearly stated for both the proposal and the alternatives that come out of this. There's no reason why we can't actually reduce traffic if we're smart enough about it. Also biology. Whatever project alternatives come out, we must have that windrow of eucalyptus sustained and in fact enhanced. It's taken quite a beating over the years. And it's nothing like it used to be. I remember years and years ago, you used to go up Seal Beach Boulevard when you could still drive there and see this beautiful windrow of eucalyptus trees. It was unique to the area. It's gone now. How are we going to restore this? What project alternative will make that happen the most? Hydrology. There's the whole water situation, not just in the state, but locally has to be really looked at. Because not only now are we trying to sequester water when it rains, instead of just letting it go out into the street and back into the ocean, we try and get it back into the land. And the project here looks like there's a lot of sequestration going on with the ponds of the golf course. I'm concerned if the golf course goes away at some point, we're going to have to figure out something else. So whatever happens in the future, we still have to maintain that. There's a couple of other comments, but I'm going to put them in writing as this develops. But also, one last thing. Are print copies available for any part of this report coming forward? The reason I ask is I try and read this stuff on the computer. The copy is like mice copy. It's tiny. We're old and blind, you know, and we need to read this stuff. And it becomes impossible when we get eye strain trying to read it through a computer. Some of us need print material to review, write notes on, because we're from a print generation, basically. So that's a request that I'd like to make and to see happen so that the people of the community can have easier access to this information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. And in conjunction with that, I'd like to point out that I believe it's imperative, if this project is to go forward, that we have a thorough understanding of surface hydrology and stormwater. Okay, that, as it comes before other committees and commissions, the inability to manage surface water flow in that area currently is not acceptable. And so we would be remiss if that wasn't thoroughly examined in this report.
Good evening. My name is Susan Berenbaum. I live in College Park East, and I have emailed my comments to Mr. Temple, but I just want to piggyback on your comment. My main concern, of course, the traffic is going to be horrible if this passes, but the hydrology report is what I'm most concerned about. In College Park East on the west end, and we addressed this at the last city council meeting, there's a serious flooding situation on Ironwood, Guava, Heather, for an elder. The drainage system just can't work. It doesn't function, and we need to get all of our water over to the golf course. If the golf course is already flooded, like you say, the water flows right back through the pipes back into our neighborhood, which causes an even bigger problem for us. This has been going on since the neighborhood was built, and it has poor grading, so the whole neighborhood has to come down to one end, and it just can't get over there quickly enough. Studies have been done in the past by AKM, and their suggestion was that we build a pump station in our neighborhood to pump the water over to the golf course. But once again, even if we pumped it over, if the golf course has problems with flooding, it's not going to work. So my suggestion would be to do this hydrology report or the survey of the flooding situation at the golf course first. You may find out that it can't be mitigated, and you won't have to do any of the other studies because the project will not be approved. So you'll save a lot of time and money. And the other thing is, perhaps the city council or whoever will say, you know, this is the owner's problem. If we approve the plans, they will know ahead of time that if there's a flooding issue, if there are new people living over there, if their buildings are floating on water, or like we were saying, it's a water park, not a golf course, then believe me, if the owner, as soon as the people living there try to sue the owner, he's going to say, oh no, it was the city that approved those plans. It's going to come back to the city, and then we're going to be in big trouble.
Thank you for your comments. So I'd like to further underscore what she's saying. And the surface water there is well beyond the purview of this meeting, but it's something that the city clearly needs to evaluate. And I've made that known to a number of people. I see some folks I know here this evening. And simply putting onto a golf course, I don't think is the answer. But stormwater sequestration, there are a number of things that the city should consider with respect to that. Anyone else would like to come up?
Good evening. My name's Carol Churchill. I'm from Rossmore, so you're probably wondering why I'm here. I think Rossmore is kind of like the double stuffing in an Oreo cookie. You got Los Alamitos on one side, you got the stuffing, and you got Seal Beach on the other, and as those two cities expand, Rossmore kind of gets squished in the middle. Los Alamitos actually treats Rossmore as within their sphere of influence. So we've been following the Los Alamitos plans for their housing element updates, and I've also been asked to take a look at your housing element in your general plan. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the quality of your general plan. It includes a detailed discussion about liquefaction under its geology area. Los Alamitos has completely omitted that. And in connection with their housing element, last night, we asked them to ask their consultant to do that geologic study with regard to liquefaction, because according to the state maps, every one of the sites that they've selected for housing development is in a liquefaction zone, as is Rossmore and Seal Beach. And your particular community is very well informed on that, far more so than other communities in the neighborhood. Now, I'm bringing that up because the environmental study includes geology and water, which everybody is talking about. But in terms of earthquakes, your general plan states that the most stable buildings within this geologic zone are single-story family residence. Now we're looking at structures under these new housing elements that go 3 and 4 stories. And according to your research and your general plan, it states that standard building codes are not sufficient to deal with the liquefaction issue in terms of development. The Los Alamitos consultant said, oh yes, all we have to do in terms of earthquake in our community is deal with standard building codes. That will handle everything. And that directly conflicts with what your consultant put in your general plan. And since Los Alamitos has chosen not to study it, there's going to be questions. My question, and I guess because I have no idea what the answer is, will this report look into the structures stabilization that's going to be required within your community for buildings that are going to be 3 and 4 stories tall, and how that relates to public safety access in the event of an emergency? Because your plan identifies maybe 10 or 20 different possible negative scenarios that can occur with regard to the freeways all intersecting at this point, the flooding of Pacific Coast Highway, and the lack of public safety personnel being able to get into the community to assist in the event of an emergency. But with the population increases that are going to be accomplished with all this major housing development, you also have to look at escape routes. There has to be ways for people to get out of the community. So I think that also is relevant to your transportation issue. And under the utilities issue, your general plan, when it talks about liquefaction, says, hey, you guys, we got to pay attention to all the utilities that are underground. So you have gas lines that could fracture during an earthquake, which could result in a fire. You have water, you have electricity, and there's other things that are underground. And one of the questions is, will developers be required to put things underground, or in view of the liquefaction and the high water table, will they be required to construct some of these things above ground so they aren't broken when an earthquake occurs? So those are my questions. I have no idea what the answer was. I'm hoping that your consultant will take that into consideration, because I know you guys are really astute and you're on top of it. And Los Alamitos can benefit from the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A couple of quick things with respect to the geotechnical engineering on major projects. I was a co-author on the study for fire following earthquake for the entire city of Los Angeles. And the effects of liquefaction have many different causes. But I guess that person left in a hurry. They're not too happy with us. But at any rate, projects of this size, I just wanted to allay your fears. We would have a thorough geotechnical analysis of the project prior, if this project were to go forward. Most major programs would have a geotechnical analysis on the project as it goes forward. And so that's very common. And your comments about public safety and earthquakes, the city and the county is very much appraised of that. On our FFE analysis and our modeling that we use, fire following earthquake was the public safety aspect of that. So there's a whole lot of a body of knowledge that exists regarding that. And I believe the Seal Beach has done a very good job with that. So thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else like to come on up?
Hi, good evening. My name is Derek Boyer, and I live in College Park East. And I actually have less of a comment, but I want to verify some answers to some questions. So one of the topics on the EIR list of topics was hydrology, and I know that's what everyone's concerned with. I just want to verify, so is it true that the water that piles up as stormwater that has, borderline flooded a lot of areas, including mine, I have efflorescence, the water table actually pushes the salt up and it's destroying the foundation of my house. I'm having to spend thousands of dollars independently to reinforce the foundation of my house, and I'm listed as one of those addresses. There's the whole list of addresses on board or on record with the city that are affected by this, and mine is one of them. I didn't even know it until I talked to Susie over there, and I'm not surprised because I'm dealing with it right now. I've got a bid for more than $10,000 worth of foundation repairs. And I know that's not a new story, but what I'm really concerned with is I want to verify. So when stormwater, we have difficulty getting rid of it, right? Is it true that it actually routes to the golf course, Old Ranch area? Does it like go underground and actually somehow terminate over there? Is that true? Do we know? Is that how it's routed?
I'm afraid that's a public works question that I can't answer for you.
Okay, well, the reason
But I can take your information and we can follow up with you.
Well, the reason I'm trying to verify that is because if it does, then that would be part that you want to improve your EIR report. That's what you're here for. So I'm requesting that if that's true, if we can verify that what you guys are proposing to do over there, that the hydrology include this specifically, that hydrology could mean a lot of things, right? I mean, we could be talking about the liquefaction stuff, but does it specifically address if it's going to compromise or maybe even improve? I mean, it would be amazing if it actually opened up an opportunity somehow to redesign that area in a way that improves this, if that water does forward from our property area in College Park East, across the street, across Lamson, and into that area. So I'm just suggesting, as my comment, that you guys specifically include that as part of your hydrology topic. And, yeah, thank you for hearing my question. And
Thank you so
I guess
much.
I'll follow up about what was the planning, Public Works? Okay.
I would like to also just provide a brief response, and that is that the hydrology section is not just hydrology. It is hydrology and water quality. So there are requirements in place that the water, whether it's runoff during construction or long-term operation of the project, that the water gets treated before it goes into the storm drain. So again, it is just not hydrology, it is hydrology and water quality that will definitely address the issue of your concern.
Anyone else? Sorry, I didn't see you, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Perel. Did you need my address or anything? Live on Galleon. First of all, I just want to thank the staff. Sean, you really did a fine job. I think y'all did a really great job with this initial study, and I want to commend y'all on realizing the scope, the potential impacts, potential significant impacts of this project. It's a big project, and you did indeed identify many potential, 17 out of the 20 possible potential impacts as being, like could be significant. So that means hopefully we'll get a very robust EIR out of this because you were conservative, I feel, and thank you for that. So I just wanted to follow up on some comments I heard tonight, just build upon them a little bit more because I had similar. I reviewed the documents in detail, including the hydrology report, and I think the hydrology report, at least I found it to be difficult to follow, and there were some statements that conflicted. So all the storm water from the golf course goes into the storm drain, and in other places all the water from the golf course goes into the ponds on the golf course, and yet we found unlikely to be a significant impact on water quality or hydrology from that. I can't imagine all that stormwater mounding and creating changes in groundwater gradient and flow. And then if there's pesticides and fertilizer associated with the golf course and it's going into groundwater, I question whether that really should be checked off as insignificant impact. I think I'd like the EIR to look at that more closely. And also, hopefully the EIR will include a lot better maps and diagrams of stormwater processes and hydrogeology and hydrology and geotechnical, as Rich pointed out. Because it's just too sketchy. It's very difficult to follow without detailed maps and diagrams. So that's one comment. And then I just, going back to the cumulative impacts, I think that's so important. This other gentleman brought up, not just that project, but we all do now expect a flurry of high-density development projects because of state mandates. And the state mandates are going to be a reason or means for a lot of development projects to occur. And I think when we look at cumulative impacts of these projects, we really have to look broadly, because even, and I understand that CEQA does require us to look beyond the jurisdiction of Seal Beach, even though the discretionary decision on this project will be made by Seal Beach. We really need to reach out and look at all the development projects and really think about the projects that are going to share similar environmental resources. For instance, Seal Beach gets its water from the State Water Project, from the Colorado River, and from our wells. And I think then we need to consider the impact on that resource, on that service from all the development projects that would be reasonably foreseeable, probable future developments, all closely related, past, present, and future. And take a look at that, because, even on the website at the OC Water District, they say, Seal Beach is really at some risk already for not having adequate supply. And so if we endanger that supply cumulatively with all these projects, we really need to know that now before we all have to ration water further. So in the same with the air basin, with traffic, we are sharing a lot of the same traffic arteries, there's only so much air to breathe, only so much water to drink, and there are only so many places we can put freeways. So I just ask for us to be liberal and thoughtful about what we include in our cumulative analysis, and make that very clear in the EIR, what projects are being included and why, and what projects aren't and why. So I do have very specific comments, much more technical, 17 of them, and I will send those to you, Sean. Thank you so much.
In regards to the cumulative effects for the air quality and the transportation, I want to be sure, one of the things that was mentioned in the report was the use of the 2016 Air Quality Management Plan. I want to be sure that for the project we use the 2022 Air Quality Management Plan that the Air Quality Management District just approved December 2nd of last year. So that's the most immediate. That will have in there the information we need, the data that's more current and not 6 years old. And that's good for air quality, for transportation impacts. You're shaking your head, yes, Sean. But I just want to make sure that that's really an important piece of this document. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean. I'm in College Park East. And just to add on to the previous person, in the report, it has the hydrology section as I think it should be significant. Is there any way that can change? Right now it's listed as not significant. And also it says, on page 29, it says significant impact, but we're not going to evaluate it in the EIR. And I was wondering why.
There are actually a number of threshold questions in the hydrology and water quality section, as well as other topics. So while some of the impacts based on the discussion and analysis were deemed to be less than significant, majority of them will be analyzed in the EIR.
Okay.
So there are multiple questions under hydrology.
Right. And I just thought the whole section should, my opinion is, for those ones that are cut out or saying that they're insignificant, I think they should all be significant because
We
we're
will-
talking about hydrology and, I mean, everyone has come up here and said that there's a real
We
problem
will
there.
definitely revisit.
Okay.
Thank you.
On another page, I guess 2-15, it says, loss of topsoil, we're gonna have uncontrolled drainage, and I just thought, well, if we're already having problems with our storm drainage plan, and the city has decided not to go forward with that, I just don't want to see a lot of topsoil, that's like mud coming into CPE. So I would like that to be controlled somehow, if you could control that. And then also, it talks about pipe size, can't be, whatever, I guess the rule is, or the law, or whatever, the regulation, the pipe size can't be decreased without the city approval. Well, I was going to say, is there any way in the EIR that you could say that whatever pipe size you consider to be adequate would be permanent, and that the city cannot make any kind of decision, because obviously the decisions that they're making are going counter to us being, not flooded. I mean, so I would like that to be a permanent thing, that the city cannot decrease the pipe size. And that's like on page 1244 of the little thing, but on page 4 of the hard document or whatever. So I think that's it for right now, but thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want to point out that this is not a design document. And so typically, we as engineers take our surface water flow hydrology, and we size the pipe to what we believe the laminar flow will be. So if we have confined areas, we can do some calculations and determine, what's going to flow, how much water will flow into that pipe, and then we size the pipe accordingly. Now, when you develop things and you further sequester the inability of water to penetrate in the subsurface, you increase laminar flow. So I think that's a design issue, not in the purview of this, but I wanted to allay your fears. We just don't change pipe sizes arbitrarily without actually doing some analysis. Please, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to make comments and having this meeting. I would first like to start with, I'm disappointed that a Zoom was not offered. And I spoke at council requesting a Zoom meeting, and I also spoke to you, Alexa. And the fact is, almost every agency, regulatory, everything now has a hybrid. You can come in person or you can come by Zoom, and there's a feature where you can put questions in the chat box. So I think it's a disservice that more people who want to attend but don't drive, maybe don't drive at night, or are home caring for children or parents or whatever, didn't have the opportunity. So I think when you look at, I believe our track has 2,700 people, homes, and we have 50 people here. And I think that speaks volumes that the notification was not done very well. And I want to thank my council member who is here, because I found out through her newsletter about this meeting, not from the city, and it should have come from the city. And we should have a Zoom, and we should have multiple opportunities to offer input to the staff and to anybody else that's interested. So that was one. I also wanted to mention last night that at the Los Alamitos City Council, where they overturned the Airport Land Use Commission's findings, which Seal Beach has done as well, there was a question asked to the city manager about liability, because you're overturning a report that's pointing out potential hazards and not suitable land use. And the question posed to the city manager was, who bears the liability? And he said, not the city, it'll be the developer, and they will have to indemnify us. And that was his quick answer, kind of like on the spot. And so again, that's another question for Seal Beach, now that the council has overturned the land use recommendations. And I know I'm a little bit off track, but where does that fall in all this with overturning the Airport Commission's findings, and who's going to be liable in this case of an accident from the airbase? And if you look at the plans, it looks like some of the dense part of this is right at the end of the, where they're taking off, the last part of the takeoff. So, and that's a very, very busy intersection. It's one of our worst choke points. It's coming off the freeway, trying to get into St. Cloud, trying to get to Lamson, trying to get to CVS. So I would, I think we need to look into that. And then the other thing I want to point out is the noise. Ever since the sound wall got moved in on us, it is it's miserable, the sound noise that's coming off the new freeway. I don't know what happened, if the pavement changed or what, but the noise is incredibly bad. And we have a sidewalk where if we want to walk from College Park East to CBS or Ralph's or to Islands or whatever, the noise is so loud. The freeway is right there. There's no sound wall at the endpoints. You have sensitive receptors there with the senior home. And again, we need to look at, from an environmental impact standpoint, noise. And now we're saying we're going to add a high density, another project. We've got one down the street at the West Ed building. And the question is, all this noise, and then yet we're supposed to be walking and riding our bikes and have a livable community when we can barely, it's unbearable, the sound now that's coming off the freeway. And then we're going to add more traffic onto Lamson and more traffic over to the country club. And again, it's just noise, noise, noise.
Are you experiencing the noise 24/7, or
Yes,
is it periodic?
all the time now.
All the
And
time?
I don't live on the back side of the track,
Mhm.
and it's on the front side, and we can hear the construction, stuff that's going on, but the freeway noise is constant now. And we've also got the noise from the airport, from Long Beach Airport, where they're bringing the planes around now to over us as well. But the noise, I notice the noise. Mostly 'cause
Interesting, I got a complaint from one of our neighbors about the pickleball courts too, so.
Yeah.
So
Well,
noise
'cause
is an issue.
and part of that is the traffic is moving faster.
Right, it
Right?
is,
Because
yeah.
they're hauling, what? And again, when we're trying to get on the freeway now we got NASCAR even trying to merge onto the freeway,
Yeah.
right there with the new thing. And now we're going to add more cars, into that NASCAR freeway situation. So I would just say, I know usually with environmental impact, we're mostly focused on air and water and soil remediation, et cetera. But I just don't want us to lose track of noise, because it is just unbearable. And we like to be outside. We need to be outside. Okay, and so again, we need to consider the huge noise impacts cumulative, along with, what we're already up against now with the changing of the sound wall and the high rate of speed coming up the 22. So
Are you affected by noise from the airfield itself?
I do hear them. They're further off, and it's not 24/7. So we'll hear like the helicopters. Of course, we hear the air show. I'm not complaining, because that's that's kind of a rare thing. Well, we'll hear some of the helicopters going off, but it's quick. They do their thing and they go up and they're gone. Versus the traffic. Even in the middle of the night, you hear traffic. It's just constant roaring and buzzing. And then, of course, we hear all the emergency vehicles that need to get up there to help people. But you hear that too as well. So, yeah.
405 is the problem.
Yeah,
is.
and not only is the 405 a problem, but Lamson is, 405 cut through. And so again, when the 605 backs up, people jump off, come up Catella, or go through the homes through Rossmore, come up to Seal Beach and jump down onto Lamson, all the way down to the 22, and then get back on the freeway. So Lamson is the bypass when the 405 is choked up, or even when the 605 is choked up, they'll come up and then catch our freeway from Seal Beach Boulevard. So there's just so much traffic out there where, every city's got the same issue. It's traffic and congestion and, lack of parking. So anyway, just sharing my thoughts. But in closing, I would really suggest that we need to be very robust about reaching out to our neighbors, our community, our surrounding cities, because we're all, it's really interesting. Carol mentioned how Rossmore is impacted, and, by something we do in Seal, and something in Rossmore impacts, LaSalle, and LaSalle impacts us. It's just really, our cities are so interwoven that we really need to take that into consideration. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll try to make it brief. Back in the 80s, I was the chairman of the Greens Committee at Old Ranch for 6 years. During that time, the Bixbys owned Old Ranch. They wanted to develop. I was on the committee, we looked at everything, and we were especially concerned with water because Old Ranch has protected College Park East and the surrounding communities for over 60 years. Now, when Bixby went to the city, obviously the city asked, what do you want to do? They told them what they wanted to do, which was modest compared to what is being proposed here. They were rejected out of hand. And they wondered why, and it was the water. Okay, there was no way at that time to get water off the golf course. So my committee basically put in a small pump, which isn't much bigger today, that pumps the water off the golf course. Now, I'm having a senior moment here.
I do too. It's okay.
Anyway, Bixby was very upset, and they wanted to go on with the development, just like any developer was. I'm not against development, but what happened was, as they began to look at the situation, they realized it was going to cost them in $1980 millions to mitigate the potential flood problem. Millions in the 1980s. Because, quite simply, our water table is too high over there. It's about 7 feet. And there is no way place for the water to go when the tide is up. And so you have a situation like a bathtub that overflows. And it overflows into College Park. And I can tell you from personal experience, we haven't had any serious weather for, I'm going to say, a decade. But I personally, I think around 1998 to 2000, I live in College Park. I had to park. You couldn't get in College Park. It was underwater. Okay? I had to go to Valley View and walk in at least 2 miles with water up to my waist. The water was this far from coming in our house when I got home. And once I got home, we couldn't leave. Okay? So this water thing that, seems like a hydrology issue, it's not a hydrology issue. It's way beyond that, and it needs to be really looked at seriously. Most of the people haven't been around as long as I have, and they weren't involved at the time. But if all you have to do is go back and look at the history of Seal Beach and the history of Old Ranch, and they've got pictures. Old Ranch becomes, when you have serious water, it becomes a huge lake. I walk the perimeter of Old Ranch during rainstorms, and I know where the water comes in from, and it's all come in from Lamson, but not just from College Park. It comes all the way down from Valley View. I mean, the problem is far beyond some little thing where they can pump water off. The other thing is, when I was with the Greens Committee, Seal Beach frequently told us, hey, you can't pump. We're backed up.
They are.
You can't pump. And so we couldn't pump. And the golf course would be closed for like 3 weeks. Once we got the little pump in, we could gradually drain it off, and it, eventually goes away. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Please.
Hopefully I'm the conclusion. Everybody else is done. I originally wasn't going to come up here and speak, but I felt like this is my third meeting in the last week and a half. I went to the Rossmore Association and then the Los Alamitos and now the Seal Beach. I live in Rossmore, my wife and I, and our sons and daughter both live in Old Ranch. They both live there. So all of us are very interested, but I'm more here representing the youngsters. My son and daughter work, career, out of college, and they can't really pay attention to what's going on around them. And I see a lot of things. So I just so you know, I designed and built airplanes for 43 years. And so I understand what schedules, pressures, and the higher-ups, and I know we're being asked to put in all these additional housings and whatever, and schedule pressures to get it done. All I'm saying is we all need to work together, and I agreed with everybody's comments here, but I could tell you there are, like, in the Los Al meeting, I felt that they're cutting out the military base. Maybe factually they aren't. I'm an outsider. I'm just telling you. There's no consideration like the 4 stories, the flight paths of these cars. And I have pride living in the area, and I truly go on there. If you have a license, you could drive on the base. And a lady had brought up a comment in the Rossmore Townhome Association. There is number of buildings on there that are boarded up on the base, right? And if we all work together and talk and maybe get some of those fixed up, that was her idea. I'm not trying to take credit. The Navy base. Yeah, the joint Navy
Joint
base
Forces
or
base.
whatever, yeah. I mean, yeah, we can maybe get some of those fixed up instead, and some of the homeless military people can live there, whatever. All I'm saying is we need to look at every option and not cut everything out and not work together as a community, because I don't feel like everybody's on the same page 100%. A lot of things are robust being done here and maybe in some of the others, but somehow there needs to be a liaison way of bringing it all together because we're all affected. I mean, I don't live in Seal Beach, but my son and daughter do, and you know what I mean? So all I'm saying is let's make sure we think through this really, really well and take our time, and don't allow people to push us. Upper management, I didn't allow them to pressure us if it was the wrong thing for the business. So if it's the wrong thing for us, united as a community, let's make sure we stick together and try to help the youth understand what's going on around them, because they don't have time to get involved. Anyway, I'm done. Hopefully we're done. So thank you.
I would like to say something, it's the intent of this board to take the time to evaluate the impacts to the environment, to assure that the quality of life that we all moved here for, myself included, remains. I mean, development has to go forward. We all recognize that, but it's the intent of this board and the efforts of our team here to deliver a project or not deliver a project, whichever case may be, that is consistent with sound environmental practice. And we're going to take the time to do that. Please.
Thank you. My name's Dan Brandt, and I've lived in College Park East for about 7 years. I actually grew up on the military housing they were talking about on Farquhar.
Yeah.
And then when they tore that down, I went and moved to the Seal Beach housing. And that's why I'm here today, because I'll tell you some things that we could probably talk about. And I'm going to send my comments in an email. I never thought I'd be up. First was Los Al, now it's here. Be up here speaking in front of, talking about EIRs, talking about all these developments, the high-density developments. But what pushes me is that the hard work I had to do to get to College Park East, I made it a very specific decision, my second home to go to College Park East. I could pick through Rossmore or College Park East. And the reason I picked College Park East was the police department had local control, and they did a good job, right? It's a street where I figured wouldn't be developed. Although I knew Lamson Avenue is a very unsafe street, through experience, I've made a major amount of fatalities there. We got 6 fatalities in 20 years over a 1.5 mile road. I knew there was issues, right? I knew there was a small sidewalk. It's kind of landlocked. But I also knew that there was a non-development agreement over at Old Ranch, which is still in place, right? I knew that. So I knew there was some time till that development happens. The West Ed, we weren't in the situation we're in now with the surplus land, and now we're talking about a development going in there, right? And I'll tell you, I hope that there's some lessons learned here Because I'll tell you what happened with the Los Alamitos one. The residents didn't know, because yes, Los Alamitos, or the developer, they did what was necessary, which was 500 feet from the development, which is not many homes, because it's basically you got part of Parkwood and a little bit of College Park East. So they didn't communicate, right? So when I found that out, I found out from our council member who put stuff, I think it was on Nextdoor, and we had 12 days. The scoping meeting was happening. So we went and saw the scoping meeting. I was like, this is a significant project, right? So we had 12 days to band as a community and figure out how are we going to address this? Because we know there's that 30-day process. I'm a little disappointed we don't have a Zoom meeting here, because like we saw last night at LaSalle Council, there's about 120 people there, and there wasn't sufficient access to even bathrooms. There wasn't sufficient access to the handicap, right? This is also done on President's Week, where we know people are on vacations, where we know people kids are out of school. This should be transparent from the beginning, right? There wasn't workshops done. There was one development, or the developers held an open house, which was a sales pitch, right? But the residents did not understand what's going on. Now there's about 450 residents in College Park East alone, if not more in the surrounding area, that are aware of the developments and things going on. So if it's not transparent, I'm telling you, people are going to be upset. They want to know exactly, they need to know details. Like questions are, the people that are leaving the apartment buildings on Seal Beach Boulevard, is it right turns only? Do we know if it's right turn only out of that development?
So typically, how we handle that is the consultant, Somas, who's a very competent company, I'm very familiar with them. We will need a model, a traffic model, that is very detailed. In the analysis we did a couple of years ago for the 24-hour fitness in Seal Beach, what I believe that this document needs to have is a sound model, answering all those questions, looking at congestion, air quality, noise, and the litany of issues that go with that. So the traffic, there's a specific engineer called the traffic engineer, and that is specifically what they do, and that will be part and parcel of the EIR that we do, to have that type of detailed analysis, and you will get to reflect and comment on that.
So my question is, because I'll be honest, I haven't looked through all the plans, but those are like questions, if we're going to comment on the EIR, I need to know how people are leaving the project.
Sure.
So I can see cut-through traffic, I can see how that impacts Rossmore, St. Cloud, that impacts different intersections.
So when we design the traffic study, your input is very valuable. So when we look at traffic study, did you do it at 2 a.m. in the morning? Or did you do it at peak periods?
Sure.
How did you do that? What type were the traffic patterns? And I think those are the types and kinds of questions that we need this input for. And thank you very much for those comments.
Yeah, because I know when we had the Lamson project, there was some specific plans of how they're going to exit all right turns on the Lamson, things like that. So we at least had some information. So we make educated, and we ask for certain technical studies on the IR because we have the information, right? And like I said, transparency is going to be huge here, because I'm hearing a little bit from my council person, and I'm not hearing a lot from the city. Can I ask how far did the notifications go out to surrounding the project? Do we know?
I'll answer that. We mailed within 500 feet of the property line, additionally published in the newspaper. We had a banner on the city website.
Okay. So the point is here, 500 feet from that project is not very far. The impacts that are going to be here, what that's going to do is when we do the bare minimum, we learned in LaSalle, when we do the bare minimum, all it does is make people upset, lose faith in transparency, and say, what are we trying to hide? I'm going to tell you that that's exactly what happened. Because we spent from November till last night, right, at city council meetings in LaSalle, trying to get information, met with developers, all sorts of stuff. But the idea is when we just do the bare minimum, right, people don't understand things. They're not in a traffic commission, they're not city council members. When you talk housing element, you talk project, they're thinking about, how do I take my kids to school?
Absolutely, in the morning.
Right? Well, they're just thinking about daily life. They don't understand what the impacts, we talked about the cumulative impacts. They're going to see them. Rossmore's starting to wake up to those impacts and the potential housing element issues, right? So they're starting to wake up. So I would highly suggest, and also, I don't know what communication we have with the base. They're putting a 100-acre solar farm right next to the West Ed project right now as we speak, right? So I don't know what communication we're having with that, whether that impacts the noise study or it impacts different issues. But if we're not communicating with the base to see what their development plans are, because all of a sudden we just hear that they're doing a 100-acre solar farm right there by Lamson, right? So I don't know what communication we have with the base, what communication we have with Rossmore residents, because if it's right turns only, which I think it's going to be out of that apartment building, the apartment area, I mean, the impact on Seal Beach Boulevard and the U-turns at St. Cloud and the other areas during peak times is going to be ridiculous. So,
He makes a good point. I know what the law requires. But, considering Lamson and the effects that does have, would it be possible, Sean, for the city to do a mailer to College Park East? Because I think their inputs, I've lived here for 32 years. I know what goes on at Seattle, at Seal Beach and Lamson. We all do. And so would it be possible, Alexa, to send a mailer to everybody in the area and let them know what we're doing? I absolutely concur with you. Transparency is important. And if that gives it that meat of transparency, I think we need to do it. Thoughts?
I appreciate the input, and we'll definitely work with our council member on how we can spread the word better. I'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation with you on your ideas as well. In terms of a mailing, I'm hesitant to commit for a couple of reasons, but it's certainly something that we can look at.
There might be some funds involved there, and we can't spend
That's
any
correct,
money.
yeah.
So this board doesn't have the authority to spend money, so I have to ask. But
I totally understand. I appreciate it because the thing is, we've learned lessons ourselves. When you work through community education, and the community has to educate people, right? You'd rather have the people doing the project, and there's people that talk to people that talk to people that might not be accurate on different things.
Correct.
So if we're doing the community outreach and people have their eyes open and they can see exactly what's going to happen, and they have communication, I'm telling you, it's going to be way better. Because there's going to be some things that the city can control, just like La Salle with their housing element, they control and they can't control. And we got to wait till the last meeting to hear some of those things. People are going to be upset. So I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Okay, second repeats are good.
I just got flustered when I was up here, but Dan, thank you for all of your
Peaked
comments.
that information. You peaked your.
Yeah, I'm just, at the very beginning, I right away felt like we could only say things that were appropriate, like you didn't want to hear our personal experiences.
We do.
What I don't understand is, I've been to many city councilmen meetings, I've brought up my concerns, but I never hear back if anything happened. And you said this is like the initial step, and there will be other opportunities, public hearings. If Dan's group or whoever, if we rally up the troops in our neighborhood to come to these meetings, will it really make a difference? If a parent has to get a babysitter to watch their kids so they can come here and express their feelings, is it going to be worthwhile for them, or is it already going to be beyond that stage to where anything will be, like I said, if these initial important things are, looked at first, we don't have to go beyond everything else. Like if that place is never going to have that.
So this isn't a go, no-go just yet, okay? What
Right.
we're really trying to do is harvest. I appreciate so much your ideas right now. And so what we're trying to do is harvest all these ideas to allow them to make a determination should we go forward. So this is the first step, you're quite correct. And we're gathering everybody's ideas, comments, thoughts, personal views. All of that is germane to to make this document the very best it can be. And so right now, we're not at the determining, and you're going to have lots of input as this goes through public comment, as it's prepared, as we're now trying to say, can we get the best document so that it reduces the number of comments down the road. Once that's done, the overall document will, if they can't mitigate it, it could have some negative impacts. All those impacts will be analyzed thoroughly. And then at that point, I think it'll go through the process as outlined. Could you put that back up, please? The process. You had a process flow diagram. Can you put that back up? And so I'd like to
Yeah,
walk you
I
through this a
understood all
little
that.
bit here.
I paid attention.
And so where the dark colors are is where, as the document's being developed, okay, the transparency that we're trying to deliver here will come at those junctures. And I believe, I've been on this board for 8 years, and I've had a lot of people come up and a lot of talking, and sometimes projects go forward, sometimes they don't. And I think that your comments, this is your community. If you care about it, come up here and share your ideas.
I'll be back.
And so I would encourage you to tell your friends and neighbors to do the same.
But especially like that traffic. I mean, you actually have to, the traffic engineer doesn't see what we see every day. Like when that traffic is backed up past Basswood in the morning when kids are trying to go to school, that's serious.
So let
When
me share
there's
with
an
you.
event at the Old Ranch Golf Course, a wedding or whatever, and all those cars are trying to turn in at Basswood, they fill up that left-hand turn lane and they expand into the traffic lane, and people have to like swerve around them or stop or try to change lanes to move around the traffic.
Those inputs are exactly what they need
Okay, well,
to put in that
I'm
traffic
going to be
model.
sending you a lot more, Sean.
So
Okay.
we expect to hear from you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, could I add, I'd like to add,
Thank you, thank you. All righty.
I'd like to add something,
I'm
Chair.
going to let you in a sec. With that, staff, I guess public comments are concluded. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Comments? Okay, board members, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, just going back to the last commenter, what she was suggesting is very practical. Look at this one issue, and it might kill off the need to look at anything else. But I'd like to remind everybody that there are legal requirements imposed by the California Environmental Quality Act about looking at this broad range of issues. So the consultant and the city has no choice but to look at all these issues.
So they can't be cut? I mean, any of those requirements cannot be deviated by the council?
The developers bypass it.
No. You do that and you create a lawsuit. You have to follow the law.
This sounded like earlier I heard La Salle was cutting something out on liquefaction.
Well, so that's a design element. That's not really a CEQA element. They're two separate issues. So design elements, that is on the onus as a standard of care for the engineer in charge, as opposed to the CEQA that is in reference here.
One other thing.
Please.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is, I didn't hear very much tonight because of the things that most everybody here is interested in, but where in the report will you be looking at the relationship and issues about the project and the airbase? For example, those multifamily dwellings that are proposed look to me like they're pretty darn close to the clear zone of the runway there. In fact, they may even be in it, as far as I know. But,
in the land use and planning section of the EIR, that's where we discuss in detail compatibility with existing uses, and also the second part of it is consistency with plans, city documents, other documents within the region, and to make sure we identify what the impacts are in terms of consistency.
so you'll be looking at the airport land use
Yes,
plan,
absolutely, yes.
which Mrs. Campbell knows very well.
Anything else?
No, that's okay.
Would you have something you'd like to?
I would just like to say thank you to everybody that took time to come tonight, but also to let you know that I live in College Park East. I am representing District 4. I am in very much communication with Shelley Sestarsik, our city council person, and in coordination, and I would be happy to do whatever we can to help get the word out, more than just the signs in some of the yards in the neighborhood that we see all the time. So thank you for everything that all of you have done to help spread the word. There's so much more to do. And we are just community members. We're not city staff. So we're definitely here to make this project, whether it happens or not, consider all of the different results or all the different impacts that we might be living with in the future. So thank you.
So I'd like to take a minute to kind of summarize what we've done tonight and take a look at some of the takeaways, and this needs to be put into the document. It's very clear to me that there's a surface water problem, a stormwater problem, and a hydrogeologic problem. So the overall piezometric surface of the groundwater needs to be thoroughly analyzed. Once the piezometric levels are adjudicated and understood, I think that the surface water intrusion rates need to be understood in this document. All right? And that needs to happen in your document. And so don't, please spend the time to do the hydrogeology, the surface geology, so we can understand what the intrusion rates are and how an impact would occur by future development on this project. I heard some good things about the Swirl project, community development, cumulative effects. I was surprised to hear about the trees, but I liked hearing that. We need more trees in our community. I think that's incredibly important. Prior to coming into this, I had 3 very serious concerns as I reviewed the document. That was transportation, air, and noise. And our community is a small community. We moved here for the quality of that life, and any degradation of that would be unacceptable. So I'd like you to carry that forward in your document and take those thoughts and ideas and all the comments from you, and I'd like to mirror what was said earlier. I think this was a very good meeting. I appreciate the time that everybody took to share their thoughts and come out this evening, and I look forward to having this as a very engaging process as we go forward. With that, I guess I should turn it back to Alexa for staff concerns or thoughts or comments.
I don't have anything further.
I'd just like to add that we are recording tonight and that this will be available on the YouTube channel, Seal Beach Council Chambers. So any person who wasn't able to attend tonight can watch that, and they are free to contact me directly if they have any concerns or comments. I can be reached my email is stemple@sealbeachca.gov, and you can call me at 562-431-2527, extension 1316. And as part of this environmental review process, we're taking comments on what to evaluate as part of the EIR up until March 7th. So anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight can watch at their convenience and contact me directly with any comments or concerns that they have, and we'll take that into consideration, the same as any comments that were given tonight.
With that, does the board have any more concerns or thoughts? No. Does anyone else? I knew there'd be somebody.
At the last city council meeting, council member Sestarsik asked if you could maybe put a banner on the front page of the website. It's not the easiest thing to get to the document.
We do have a banner up right now. If you go to the homepage, there's rotating banners that if you just sit on the homepage, it'll come up.
It's also listed below where the press releases are, there's also a line item there. So you can find it in both places on the homepage. And when you click it, when you click either, it will take you to the page for the environmental documents. Yeah, no, there's a lot going on the homepage. I'll give you that, yeah.
Before we adjourn, is there any other thoughts or comments or? Please.
One quick one. Like I said, for 50 years, we've been told that Old Ranch is a flood basin and a golf course recreation zone. Has it been rezoned?
So typically, when you look at flood zones, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does the complete analysis of areas. Actually, that's how they determine your insurance, is the insurance companies go back to the Corps of Engineers and they'll look at various flood zones and then adjudicate what you pay in insurance. So I have not personally researched that, but perhaps that's something we could take a look at. And so I'm not sure if that is or isn't, but the Corps of Engineers, I'm certain, at least in my house here, they tell me what my flood zone risk is. I would assume that they have a similar document for that particular area.
They do. I got flood insurance. I live across the street. You can get flood insurance, but
Oh, no, it's just the designation is what I was interested in, yeah. I'm sure there is as well, I just haven't looked at that.
How about the zoning? They're requesting a zoning change. How is it zoned now?
How is it zoned, Alexa?
To answer what I think I heard from your question, the land use zoning has not changed. A part of this process, when we get to it with the Planning Commission and the City Council, would be the proposal is a specific plan which replaces essentially the zoning designed for the specific project that's being put forward. So I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's a golf course right now.
Yeah, you'd have to have a zoning change.
It would be approved through approval of the specific plan and adoption by the City Council of the specific plan.
So that's the Old Ranch specific plan, and that would be something new, as I understand it. So
Correct.
That would be a
that is
whole
the
different
project
zoning
proposal.
for that area.
Quick question, when is the non-development agreement until?
2028, I believe, is the existing development agreement, 29.
2029, there's a non-development agreement, correct, right now, not to build on there?
There is an existing development agreement. As a part of this development proposal would be to replace or amend the existing development agreement. Yes.
So once again, there'll be plenty of time to comment on all of those issues. Right now, we're just gleaning your thoughts and ideas to give us a competent document to make that decision. With that, any other thoughts, comments? This meeting of the Environmental Quality Control Board, what is today? The 22nd is adjourned.